Those indignant whip-loop lashes. Those so prudently bolted or blocked rounds. The touching reminiscence of an incompleted trail or dropped final. A round thousand whirligig glorioles, prefaced by alas, now illegible airy plume flights, all tiberiously ambi-embellishing the initials majuscule of earwicker. The meant-to-be baffling Chrismon Trillathon sign E, finally called after some he's hecatancy, heck, which, moved contrawatch-wise, represents his title in sigla as the smaller triangle, fondly called following a certain change of state, of grace, of nature, alp or delta, when single stands for or tautologically stands beside the consort. Though for that matter, since we have heard from Cathay circles how the hen is not merely a tick or two after the first, fifth, fourth of the second, eighth, 12th, Sianchang, Hong Kong, San Shanul, but yearly the other and 30th of the 9th from the 20th, our own vulgar 432 and 1132 irrespectively. Why not take the former for a village inn, the latter for an upside-down bridge, a multiplication marking for crossroads ahead, which you like pothook for the family gibbet, their old four-wheedler for the bucker's field, a tea anyway for a tryst someday, and his one side missing for an all-blind alley, leading to an Irish plot in the Champ de Mars, not? The steady monologue of the interiors. The pardonable confusion for which some blame the cudgel and more blame the soot, but unthanks to which the peas with their caps awry are quite as often as not taken for cues with their tails in there, or are quite as often as not taken for pews with their tails in their mouths. Thence your Christopher Columbus, hence our cat Presbyterians. The curt witty waddy dashes, never quite just right at the trim trite truth letter. The sudden spluttered petulance of some capitalized middle. A word as cunningly hidden in its maze of confused drapery as a field mouse in a nest of colored ribbons. That absurdly bull's-footed bee, declaring with an even plainer dump show than does the mute commoner with us, how hard a thing it is to mporn a gentler man. And look at this pre-pronominal fun-for-all, engraved and retouched, and edge-wiped and puddin-padded, very like a whale's egg farced with pemmican, as were it sentenced to be nuzzled over a full trillion times, for ever and a night, till his noddle sink or swim by that ideal reader suffering from an ideal insomnia. All those red rattled oboli, cayenne pepper cast over the text, calling unnecessary attention to errors, omissions, repetitions, and misalignments. That probably local or personal variant maggers for the more generally accepted majesty, which is but a trifle and yet may quietly amuse. Those supercilious-looking, crisscrossed Greek E's, awkward-like, perched there and here, out of date, like sick owls hawked back to Athens. And the Gigi's, too, Jesuistically formed at first, but afterwards genuflected agrily towards the Occident. The Ostrogothic cacography affected for certain phrases of Etruscan stable talk, and, in short, the learning betrayed at almost every line's end. The head strength, at least 11 men of 32 palfrey craft, revealed by a constant labor to make a gimel pass through the eye of an iota. This, for instance, utterly unexpected sinistro-gyric return to one peculiar sore point in the past. Those thrown open W's, of an early muddy Turanian origin, whether man chooses to damn them agglutinatively. Loo, two, blue, face, ache, or Ilvudapi hole, or Kanzkurz, Toppelfouls, seated with such flop right down determination and reminding us ineluctable of nature at her naturalist. While that fretful fidget F, the hornful digamma of your Borna-Barbar, rarely heard now, save when falling from the unfashionable lipsus of some heterosexual, used always in two bold-faced print types, one of them as wrong-headed as his Claudian brother, is it worthwhile interrupting to say, throughout the papyrus, as the revise mark, stalks all over the page, broods F, sensation-seeking an idea, amid the verbiage, gaunt, stands dejectedly in the diapered window margin, with its basque of bay leaves all aflutter about its forks frogs, paces with a frown, jerking to and fro, flinging phrases here, there, or returns inhibited with some half-halted suggestion, F, dragging its shoestring. The curious warning sign before our proto-parents' ipsissima verba, a very pure, nondescript, by the way, sometimes a palm-tailed otter, more often the arbutus fruit flower leaf of the cane apple, which paleographers call a leak in the thatch, or the Aaron man ingperwis through the hole of his hat, indicating that the words which follow may be taken in any order desired. Hole of Aaron man, the hat through the whispering his hoe. Here, keen again and begin again to make sound sense and sense sound kin again. Those haughty-pitched, disdotted H's, easily of the rariest and as droll as most of the jaywalking eyes we do plow in to have. Unconnected, principial, medial or final, always gems in the jam, sahib, as pipless as threadworms. The innocent exhibitionism of those frank yet capricious underlinings. That strange exotic serpentine, since so properly banished from our scripture, about as freak-wing a wetter hand now as to see a right-headed lady-wight don a cork-horse, which, in its invincible insolence, ever longer, more, and of more morosity, seems to uncoil spirally and swell lacertine lazily before our eyes under pressure of the writer's hand. The ungainly musicianlessness so painted in sculpting self-sounder, aha, as black artful as a podatus and dumbfounder, o ho, o uproarious as 10 cannons in skelterfuge. The studious omission of year number and era name from the date, the one and only time when our copyist seems at least to have grasped the beauty of restraint. The lubricitous conjugation of the last with the first. The gypsy mating of a grand stylish grave digging with the second best buns. An interpolation. These munchables occur only in the Bootherbrow family of manuscripts. BB, Cod 4, Pap 2, Breck 11, Lun 3, Din 17, Sup 30, Fullup 1,500, 100, 10, 100. The scholiast has hungrily misheard a dead man's toller as a muffin bell. The four shortened ampersands under which we can glimpse at and feel for ourselves across all those rush years, the warm, soft, short pants of the quick scribbler. The vocative lapse from which it begins and the accusative hole in which it ends itself. The aphasia of that heroic agony of recalling a once loved number leading slip by slipper to a general amnesia of misnomering one's own. Next, those R's. Those R's all bellical, the high priest's hieroglyph of Kettle Tom and Oddsbones, rasted red-handedly from our hallowed rubric prayer for truce with booty, O Remus pro Romulo, and rudely from the fane's pinnacle, tossed down by Porter to within an aim's ace of their quatrain of ruby jets among those who arse without the temple, nor since Rose Distillery burned, have quaffed night's fire-filled cup. But jig-jog-jug as day the dice box throws, whang, loyal 6 I lead, out with your heart's blued, blast ye, and there she's for you, sir, wang her, the fine Uman, rouge to her lobster locks, the Rossi, whang, God and O'Mara, has it with his ruddy old villain Rufus, wait, whang, God, and you're another he hasn't, for there's my spoil, 5 of spuds, trumps, whang, whack on his pig's king's kisser for him, K.M. O'Mara, where are you? Then, coming over to the left aisle, corner down, the cruciform postscript, from which 3 basia, or shorter and smaller oscula, have been over-carefully scraped away, plainly inspiring the tenebrous tunk page of the Book of Kells. And then it need not be lost sight of that there are exactly 3 squads of candidates for the Crucian Rose awaiting their turn in the marginal panels of Column Killer, chugged in their 3 ballot boxes, then set apart for such hanging committees, where 2 was enough for anyone, starting with old Matthew himself, as he, with great distinction, said then, just as since then, people speaking have fallen into the custom, when speaking to a person, of saying 2 is company, when the third person is the person darkly spoken of. And that last labiolingual basium might be read as a suavium, if whoever the embracer then was, wrote with the tongue in his, or perhaps her, cheek, as the case may have been then. And the fatal droop-a-dwindle slope of the blamed scrawl, a sure sign of imperfectible moral blindness. the too muchness, the far too manyness of all those four-legged M's. And why spell dear God with a big thick D? Why, oh why, oh why? The cut and dry, X and Y's form of the semifinal. And 18thly or 24thly, but at least, thank Maurice, lastly, when all is said and done, the Penelopean patience of its last paraph, a colophon of no fewer than 732 strokes, tailed by a leaping lasso, who thus at all this marveling, but will press on hotly to see the vaulting feminine libido of those interbranching Ogham sex up and in sweeps, sternly controlled and easily repersuaded by the uniform matter-of-factness of a meandering male fist. Duff Mugley, who now may be quoted by very kind arrangement. His dectroscophonious photosyncytion under suprasonic light control may be logged for by our none too distant futures as soon as tone values can be turned out from chromophilomos limited at a millicentime the microamp. First called this kind of Patagoeasy partnership, the Eulichian or tetrachiric or quadrumane, or duck and drakes or debts and dishes perplex, videte, some forestallings over that studium of sexophonologistic schizophrenesis, volume 24, pages 2 to 555. After the well-informed observation, made miles apart from the master by Tung Toid, confer, later frustrations amongst the neo-Muglian teachings abaft the semi-unconscious pass him. That in the case of the little-known paraplic best teller, popularly associated with the names of the wretched mariner, Trianpharan, Deafwedoff, our plum-sucked pattern shapekeeper, a Punic Admiralty report, from Macpherson's Ocean Round by the times of Jason's cruise, had been cleverly capsized and saucily republished as a Dodecanesian Baedeker of the every tale a treat in itself variety, which could hope satisfactorily to tickle me gander as game as your goose. The unmistaken identity of the persons in the Tiberius duplex came to light in the most devious of ways. The original document was in what is known as Ano Ononano's unbrookable script. That is to say, it showed no signs of punctuation of any sort. Yet, on holding the verso against a lit rush, this new book of Morses responded most remarkably to the silent query of our world's oldest light, and its recto let out the piquant fact that it was but pierced, but not punctured, in the university sense of the term, by numerous stabs and foliated gashes made by a pronged instrument. These paper wounds, 4 in type, were gradually and correctly understood to mean stop, please stop, do please stop, and oh, do please stop, respectively.